So we've been solving one-step equations with integers today, and we've done a lot of examples with adding, subtracting, and multiplying. These last two are going to show our variable being divided, and the inverse of division is multiplying. So we're going to have to multiply both sides to get our answer here. So we've got 14 equals negative c over 7, or the opposite of c over 7. If this negative is outside the fraction bar, we can either put it with the numerator or the denominator. It doesn't matter. I'm always going to put it with my denominator or where the number is, just to make life a little bit easier on myself and lessen my steps. So we've got c divided by negative 7. The inverse of division is multiplication. Hopefully you're saying that to yourself. And so I'm going to multiply this side by negative 7, and when I do that, I'm also going to multiply the other side by negative 7 so that I keep my equation balanced. On this side, the negative 7's cancel out, and I've got c equals. On this side, we've got to do 14 times 7, which is 98. And we've got a negative times a positive, so my answer has to be negative. So c is equal to negative 98. I would say the most common mistake here is that people see 14 and 7 and they go, oh, 14 divided by 7, c equals 2. But if you plug this in, that's why plugging in can be so important and such a good skill to practice. If we plug this back in, negative 98 divided by negative 7, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 98 divided by 7, if we do out to the side, is 14. And so our answer checks and makes sense. If we try to put a negative 2 up here, negative 2 over negative 7 does not equal 14, and our answer wouldn't check. So that's why it's so important that we check our answer, because sometimes we can be easily fooled if we're not careful. On this last example, you've got d divided by negative 3, or d over negative 3 equals negative 10. I would challenge you to pause the video and try this one on your own, and then watch to see if you got it correct. Hopefully you tried this one on your own and now you're just checking your work. You should have seen that your variable was being divided by negative 3. And the inverse of dividing by negative 3 is multiplying by negative 3. And if I do it to one side, then I have to do it to the other. And so these 3's cancel out. I'm left with d equals. And don't forget your negative. That's another common mistake. It was a negative 3 over here, so it's got to be negative 3 over here. So negative 10 times negative 3, a negative times a negative is a positive answer, and 10 times 3 is 30. So I get d equals 30. If I plug that back in just to check my answer, 30 over negative 3, we want to know, does that equal negative 10? 30 divided by negative 3 is negative 10. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. 30 divided by 3 is 10. And so negative 10, my answer checks and makes sense that d equals positive 30. So today, again, we worked on solving equations with solving one-step equations with integers. The inverse of adding was subtracting, and we had to use our 3 C's rule. The inverse of subtraction was adding, and we had to use our adding rules. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the higher number, and then you'll be exact. That was like our little row, row, row your boat hint from the cheat sheet that I gave you in your notebook earlier this lesson, or earlier this unit. And then we had multiplying and dividing, and the inverse of multiplying was dividing. The inverse of dividing was multiplying. And we had to remember that our multiplying and dividing rules are completely separate from our adding and subtracting rules. Multiplying and dividing tell us that if the signs are the same, our answer is going to be positive, and if signs are different, then our answer will be negative. And so we had to keep those rules in mind and make sure to check our answers. It's especially a good habit when we're talking about integers to go back and check your work and see that it makes sense, because integers can be tricky and you can be going too fast, and if you go too fast, you make silly mistakes. So make sure that you're checking your work and working slowly and carefully to see that your answers make sense when you are solving one-step equations with integers.